Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Friday the 13th edition of Planner's Knowledge. I am your host, Dr. Kathleen Walls. And for those who are new to Planner's Knowledge, welcome. This is a space where we will meet a variety of authors, learn about their genres and their author's journey. And hopefully, you will be inspired either one to become an author yourself and one day be on the show, and or you will share this link to other people, and hopefully you'll buy some books for yourself and for someone else. I am super excited to have a guest here who I had the opportunity to meet. I cannot believe it's been like 2 months now since we met. Time has just gone by so fast, at the Plymouth Meeting Mall Authors event. I think that's where we came into contact with each other. So this is author Laura Parnum. How are you doing today, Laura?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm excited to have you. We had to do a couple rescheduling, and I said, now it's great when we got to reschedule, but we keep working at it to make it happen.
Right.
And I said the irony that someone who combines heart, humor, and horror would end up being on Friday the 13th. It was just serendipitous that we had to.
It just happened to happen that way.
Exactly. So take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone. Just tell them a little bit about you.
Right. So I'm Laura Parnum. I'm an author of books for kids, ages 8 to 12, although other ages have enjoyed my writing as well. My first novel is Peril at Price Manor, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Before I became an author, I worked in publishing, but it was medical publishing. So I did that for about 10, 11 years. And then I got into freelance editing. So I started working with authors who were writing fiction. That was really exciting. I also do some volunteer work at local school libraries. So in Philadelphia, which is where I live, there are not enough school librarians in the schools. So there's an organization called WePack, and they work with schools in Philadelphia to provide library services. So I help out with that. And what else? What else about me? I live in Philadelphia. I have two pets I'll mention. One is a snake and one is a turtle.
Oh my.
And they're both over 30 years old.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yep.
So what type of snake do you have?
It's a ball python, and it had belonged to my father. My father passed away in 2004, so I've had the snake ever since.
Wow.
And he's getting along just fine.
Oh. And the turtle, how did the turtle come into your life?
The turtle, that's a really interesting story. I guess I won't say how old I am, but around 30 years ago, I was walking in my neighborhood. I lived in the Germantown section of Philadelphia at that point. And there was a kid sitting on his steps in front of his house. And he said to me, hey, would you like to buy a guinea pig or a turtle or a hamster?
And so a very rare and random moment.
I thought about it and I said, what kind of turtle have you got? And so he went back into his house and he brought out 3 turtles.
Oh my goodness.
One was like a big box turtle.
Yes.
Then there was a medium-sized turtle and then one of those little teeny tiny turtles.
Yes.
And he said to me, you can't have the big one. So I said, well, how much for the medium-sized one? And he said $3. So I asked how can I get him home? Because I still had a couple blocks to walk before I got home. So he went back into his house and he brought out like a plastic tank. And so then I gave him $5 for the tank and the turtle.
Funny.
He's been with me ever since.
That was a good buy. There's not many things that people can buy, and 30 years later, it's still in their life.
Right.
That's amazing. Oh, that is so funny. So, all right. So, y'all, I know y'all, some of y'all are shaking your head going, wow, that is something else. And I have to tell you, I'm laughing. I had a coworker one time that had a snake, and my father was a veterinarian.
Uh-huh.
And so one day my coworker calls me completely upset. He's like, it's something wrong. My snake is sick. There's something wrong with his eyes. And I'm like, how do you know a snake is sick? But it's your pet, so you know how your snake acts. And he was like, can I please take him to your father? So I called my father. My father's like, sure, I'll stay open for him to come. And warned his staff, because the last thing I wanted was this man coming with this large python to the door and then being like, what in the world? We're not letting you in. And lo and behold, his snake was sick. They had scales on his eyes and so
Oh,
forth. And my father gave him the necessary medicine to treat. So,
that's good.
yes, yes. All right. So now, so we know a little bit about you. And what I heard was this theme around words throughout your life. So,
Mhm.
when would you say you fell in love with reading and then with writing?
I'm tracing everything back to third grade.
Okay.
So in third grade, my teacher had the students do an assignment. We were supposed to trace our hand on a piece of paper
Hmm.
and then write a story about the adventures of Five Finger Island.
Oh,
This really sparked a, all kinds of things in my imagination. This sounded so fun. I think I had read a little bit of like Treasure Island or
hmm,
some of those other sort of pirate and deserted island stories.
yes,
Um,
yes.
so I wrote a story like that, and it was so much fun. And I think that's when I fell in love with writing. Then in fourth grade, I had our teacher gave everyone a writing journal.
Hmm.
I should have brought it so I could show you because I had it covered in stickers and I still have it.
Oh, wow.
And so we were supposed to write stories every week. It wasn't for essays or it was just for creative stories.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember writing all kinds of stories and poems, but one thing that I really enjoyed was I was writing a series
Uh-huh.
called the Jackie and Trina series.
Uh-oh.
And Jackie and Trina got into all kinds of things. There was one story with a mad scientist and a monster, and they had all kinds of adventures.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I love it.
Yeah. So then in college, excuse me,
Hmm.
um, my major was creative writing. I actually did a lot of playwriting in college.
Hmm.
Um, and then after college, I started getting into screenwriting. So I was kind
Okay.
of, thinking, oh, maybe I'll become a screenwriter and get into like, the movie business.
Hmm.
But that didn't really work out because,
Hmm.
life kind of got in the way. Um, but after I had kids, I started thinking more about writing for children. We were reading a lot of books together,
Hmm.
and the books for kids are just they can be so magical and
Yeah.
so um, uh, funny
Yeah.
and exciting, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of a great age
Hmm.
writing for. So I started
Hmm.
writing seriously when my youngest son started kindergarten.
Okay. Wow. Wow. It's so interesting when people start to trace their journey and they recognize when it really opened up for them. And so for me, it was probably about the same time, that second or third grade. I love the fact that you remember the trigger, though, that five finger island activity.
Yes, I remember it well.
That's incredible. And then you said it was Jackie and who?
Jackie and Trina.
Jackie and Trina. I'm feeling very Charlie's Angel
Right,
kind of energy around Jackie and Tina. They came
and that
before
was the
Thelma and Louise.
era too.
Okay, there we go. I'm feeling it. And pre Thelma and Louise, they had nothing on Jackie and Trina. So are we going to see Jackie? Do we see Jackie and Trina make a reemergence anywhere in your life?
I never thought about bringing them back, but maybe that's something to think about.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So now you said when your child got to the kindergarten age, you then decided to take it seriously. What was that moment like for you? And then how did you know what genre you were going to do?
Well, how was that moment for me? I think I had a lot of encouragement from my husband.
Okay.
He, he told me to go for it. So, so I did. With the genre, so I've always liked, kind of dark fantasy. Another thing that I should tell you about my origin is that I grew up, my father was an avid collector of horror movie memorabilia.
Oh.
We had a room in our house that was dedicated to all of his stuff. He had movie posters and magazines and books and scrapbooks, and then all kinds of little trinkets too. And the walls and ceiling were covered with posters, and it was all horror movies.
Wow.
So I kind of grew up surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
this type of genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, when I was, watching my own horror movies or reading horror stories, I was always drawn to the funny ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really connect with funny but scary stories. Some of my influences are like Edward Gorey, his illustrations and his stories, and then Tim Burton movies. So Edward Scissorhands and Mars Attacks is one of my favorites. So yeah, so those are kind of my inspirations.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So then what was your first book?
So my first book is this Peril at Price Manor.
All right.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's about, surprise, surprise, it's about a girl who loves horror movies.
I'm not seeing the connection there, Laura.
And so she's kind of obsessed. She wants to be in horror movies someday. And there's a horror movie maker who lives right outside of her town. And he's kind of her idol. So he makes all these blockbuster movies, and they're her favorite movies. So she one day gets the opportunity. Her mom owns a flower shop. So she's going to deliver flowers to Price Manor, which is the home of this horror movie maker. And she's been practicing her screaming and her facial expressions and her fainting. And so she's going to go there and she's going to sort of she's hoping to be discovered. But what she finds there instead is there's this slimy tentacled creature that kind of looks like this. It's got 13 tentacles, and it's attacking Maximus Price's household staff. So there are two twins who live in the house, Paisley and Argyle, and they're Mr. Price's kids, and they lead a very sheltered life. So they've never really had to do anything for themselves. And now all of a sudden, all of the household staff is getting attacked by these things. And what happens is it jumps on your face and then it kind of zombifies you. So these twins are sort of left to fend for themselves, and they've never had that experience before. So they're kind of winging it. They don't know what to do. And they meet up with Halle, the main character. And she has all this background in horror movies. So she kind of knows, she's got her ideas of what to do. Basically, they all have different skill sets that they have to use in order to, defeat these creatures. And Halle, the main character, who's kind of always been sort of thinking of herself as a damsel in distress, she has to become the heroine.
Okay. I love it. So now how did this all come to you? Was this piece by piece? Was it like just a download on a Saturday afternoon?
I wish it were that easy. So I think I was thinking a lot about my father, who, had a lot of influence on me as both, somebody who enjoys horror movies, but also as a writer, he did some writing too. And also just sort of growing up with him, he was a character. And he used to play a lot of jokes on us. And so I kind of got this idea of like, what if there was a dad who always played practical jokes on his kids? So I guess I forgot to mention that the twins at first think that this is a prank, a practical joke. So they kind of don't take it seriously.
Yes.
So I was thinking, what would happen if there was a dad who liked to play practical jokes on his kids to such an extent that when something really, maybe dire circumstances did come up, they didn't believe it was real. So that's how this story stemmed. I kind of played around with zombies for a while instead of the creature.
Okay.
That wasn't really working because I think, there were too many zombie shows, TV shows, movies, and books out there already. So it was getting a little, the market was getting a little inundated.
Saturated.
So, I had to change it up a bit.
Got you. And how long from start to finish, do you recall how long it took you to write?
Yeah. So there were many years of revisions. I think I wrote the first draft, maybe took 6 or 8 months or something like that. And then, once that first draft was written, I joined a critique group. So we were able to, work on the story with other authors whose work I was helping them with as well. I joined SCBWI, which for those who don't know, it's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And it's a great organization that provides a lot of resources for children's book authors and illustrators. So I went to, workshops and conferences through them. And I was able to learn a lot, not just about the craft, but also about, how to start thinking about getting things published. So, querying agents to try to get representation and, what you have to do that.
Yes.
So all the while I was, working toward building my knowledge about, how to go about becoming an author. I was also still revising the book because, there's always work to be done. And as I started querying literary agents, I would send about 10 or so queries out and nothing would happen. So that I might revise it a little bit more and see if I could make it better.
Okay.
So that whole process took, I think, maybe 4 more years. And then I finally got an agent. So
wow,
exciting.
Wow. So my goodness, I'm hearing the length of time. How did you maintain hope and faith during this 4-year process?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times getting feedback from people who were saying that it's an interesting story and that it will get picked up at some point. As I was querying, I would get agents who would pass on the project, but they would say, this is you've got something here, but it's not quite a fit for me, which is kind of what they say to everybody. But but also with SCBWI, I was able to get some professional critiques from literary agents or even, editors from some of the big publishing companies. And, so they would have suggestions for making it better, but they also were very encouraging and, kept giving me hope, I guess.
Gotcha.
So that was really helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I probably did lose hope at some points, but then at other points I would say, you gotta keep going, because it is true that, as an author, it's a long process to get a book published. And, you have to know that you're going to get rejections for a long time. Some
Mhm.
people can't wait that long.
Mhm.
Some people just, push through.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that because last night we had author Amy Ayers on, and one of the things that she had talked about was the patience of the traditional process.
Right.
And she was like, I wasn't interested in waiting that long. I chose to self-publish because I
Mhm.
wanted my work to get out there. And I can relate to that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
So, but there are some people who are truly interested in the traditional route. So I'm glad that you're able to speak to that.
Yeah,
So,
there's definitely pros and cons on both sides.
mhm. And what was that like for you to finally get that yes?
That was an exciting day. Um, yeah, so that was when I got my agent. It was right around the time when uh, Biden got elected president,
Mm-hmm.
and that was exciting. It was exciting in that way. I mean, there was the whole January 6th thing, which
Mm-hmm.
was not,
Mm-hmm.
a little scary, but we were happy to have a new president. And then that same day is the day I was able to announce that I got a literary agent.
Wow.
So it was an exciting day for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I knew that there was still work to be done. My agent wanted to, do a little bit more revision before sending it out to publishers. So, I was ready to buckle down and
Yeah.
um, get going.
Get it out. Yeah, so let's talk about this. Just let's extract it just a little bit more. So you had the document, it was already written, it's on your computer, you got it. You've been shipping it, emailing it to different agents for them to finally say, yes, I will represent you.
Yeah, usually the process is to write a query letter, which tells a little blurb about the story, gives some information about you as an author or excuse me,
Hmm.
um, as a person if you're not an author yet.
Hmm.
Um, and then you attach 5 or 10 pages, depending on what their specifications are. So they don't usually read the whole thing at first, and that's kind of how an agent will be able to go through they call it the slush pile,
Hmm.
really quickly because they're just reading the first sort of scene or snippet. Um, and then occasionally, I'll have a agent say, "Oh, this is interesting. Can you send me more?" So then,
Hmm.
if they request more pages, then that's always exciting too.
Okay.
You get your hopes up and your fingers are crossed. So so yeah, so eventually I finally got a yes on this agent who, she had requested more pages, and then she
Hmm.
read those pages and she requested the whole thing. And
Hmm.
so yeah, so that's how that works.
Okay. And with that, do you recall the kind of turnaround time that this particular agent had with you from the query to give me a little bit more to keep feeding me to
She was really fast. I know, it depends on the person.
Mhm.
Um, I guess, it's always hard for an agent because they have obligations to their current clients. So it's
Yes.
hard for them to get through that slush pile, which is growing and growing and growing
Mhm.
day by day.
Mhm.
Um, so I was like, I think she was excited about what she read in my query. So she
Good.
actually did request work pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the opportunity to interview author Liz Lawless earlier this week, and she started her author's journey in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so she was talking about, everything, of course, was done by mail at
Right.
that point.
Yes.
So you're sending it out and then you're waiting for a return. So versus an email where, right, things are happening potentially a little bit faster.
Right.
So it's different. Go ahead.
And now they're also using there's Query Manager, which is just sort of like an online way to submit to agents. So a lot of agents are using that now, even instead of email.
Good, good. Because I'm always thinking, as far as security, this is your intellectual property. You don't want any hacks or anything like that.
Mhm.
So it's wonderful to know as a self-publisher, those are systems that I don't utilize. But thank you so much because we have a lot of people who are interested in the traditional route. And so to hear and meet someone who this is your truth, this is important for them.
Right. Yeah.
So at this point, you get the yes, you have the agent, and now the agent is going to shop it to the publishers.
Right. Like I said, we did a little bit of revisions first. So she had some feedback for me and some suggestions, maybe to sort of deepen some of those side characters. So the twins, we got a little bit more out of them.
Okay.
And some of the pacing, she had suggestions of how to improve that. So there were another couple months with some revisions, and then she started sending it off to acquisitions editors at the publishing houses.
Okay. Before we go into that, with the revisions, how were you with that?
Fine. I think it's always hard when you first get your revision letter from your agent or your editor, and they have a list of all this stuff that you've got to change where you thought the book was perfect before. And usually for me, I have to read the letter, read the suggestions, and think about it for a couple of days before I actually sit down and work with it, because those first couple of days you're kind of like, this sounds like a lot
more.
I thought I was finished.
Yes. And as far as you talked about the editing process. So you did the literary agent, then you did the revisions, you got it. What was your editing process like?
I think I work pretty chronologically, like when I'm going through the story. If there are certain points of the story that that my agent or editor had talked about improvements for, I start at the beginning and work my way through. With the character development issues, I think so the chapters sort of switch back and forth between the characters' points of view. And so when I was really thinking about each individual character, I would read the manuscript and focus on that one character only.
Yes.
And work to develop them a little bit more, not even thinking about the other characters. So I did that for each of the characters.
That's a skill within itself. Because you talk about focus, because I know so many times you can for me, I sometimes get lost in the story, and it's like, no, you got to just hyper focus on this one particular area. That happens with you also?
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned character development, so you flesh that out, and then finally everybody's on one accord that this is complete.
Right. So, except when it gets to the editor, there's always more to do.
And then the editor has their points of view. Was there any part of the process where you wanted to push back, where it was like, no, I want this character like this, or I want this written this way?
I'm trying to remember now. I don't think so. I think for the most part, I could see what either my agent or editor was speaking to when they made a suggestion. Yeah, I don't think there was anything I really wanted to push back against.
Okay. All right. And then now you go through all of that. Everybody's on one accord. You're finally, I'm imagining, breathing a sigh of relief that finally, like, we're closer. And at this point, what are you at? Like year 5 now?
Um, so probably so when we got the publisher to pick it up, I
Mhm.
think that was about 6 years after I had started. Yeah.
Oh my God. What's it like to even hear yourself say that?
It's not unusual though. It's
I'm glad you're saying it. Yeah.
with traditional publishing, it's definitely not unusual. People have gone longer. People have, of course, gone shorter. But
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
part of the business.
It is. It's part of the process and the author's journey. And it's so important because I think sometimes you imagine that you're just going to sit down, you're going to write this book, you're going to put it out, and then kaboom, and not realizing how much time has
Hmm.
passed. I know when I did my dissertation, it was 3 years of just lit review, and I didn't realize 3 years had passed before
Wow.
I even conducted my study and then pulled it all together. And it was like, son of a gun, this has been a 4 to 5 year. How'd that happen?
Yeah.
So I hear you. You did it, and then it's each part of the author's journey has its time frame.
Hmm. Right.
So, all right. So now the publishing, getting to the publisher process. How active were you in that as opposed to your agent?
Um, Not too active. So she came up with a list of editors she thought would that the story would resonate with.
Hmm.
And she started sending it off to those folks. And as we heard back from them, she would tell me like what their um, feedback was if they had any.
Okay.
And so we had a couple of months where we were hearing back from various editors that they weren't going to take it,
Hmm.
and then we got a yes at one point. So that was a very exciting day.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I ended up with HarperCollins. Harper's the imprint.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hmm. So now with the publishing process, so then what? So they say yes, and then what are next steps for you?
More editing. Revising, I should say. Yeah, so so my editor then had some suggestions. I think at this point with that book,
Yeah.
since it had been through so much revising with both my critique partners,
Hmm.
beta readers, my agent. There wasn't too much that I had to do in terms of revisions. There was
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
but at this point, there wasn't too much in terms of revisions. I'll have to say that with the book, I have a book coming out next year, and that process was totally different. So
Oh,
I
really?
into that process. But for this one, it was maybe one round of revisions, and then it was okayed to go, to get copy edits,
Hmm.
proofreading, and all that stuff.
Okay. Hold the book up again for the people for them to see. So, for those of you who are just joining us, we are talking with award-winning author Laura Parnum. Peril at Price Manor is a great book for individuals. What age did you say? Like
Ages 8 to 12.
8 to 12.
Although
Yes.
younger and older readers have enjoyed it as well.
Hmm. And I have to, so the links are in the chat room to her website, also to Amazon. And you all, now is a fantastic time to buy this book. It is currently 50% off on
Is
Amazon.
it? Oh,
And
I
I gotta
didn't.
say, Laura, I don't even know if you know because
I should.
it,
I should
it,
know that.
it pops up. It is currently at $9.90 for the hardback. So you can definitely, that is a fantastic gift for self as well as for other loved ones. I encourage you run out and go get it. Amazon does these flash sales all the time. And so many times I'll have to jump on and be like, oh my goodness, my book is down. Let me let me mark it and tell people go buy now, right?
Yeah.
So
And we don't know when that price will jump back up
we
again.
sure don't. But
Buy
we that's right.
it.
Exactly. I feel like it's like one of those old blue light specials, like run and get it right now. So it's a perfect time to get it. It's enjoyable. I love the fact that it is, age 8 is the youngest, but on up. Because I mean, a good book is just a good book. It doesn't matter how old you are, it's good. So, cover. Who decided what the cover would look like?
Well, the staff at Harper, I guess the book design staff, um, chose an illustrator that they thought would, have the right style, the right vibe, I guess you could call
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
for the story. They sent me her portfolio images, and I was really impressed. Her name is I don't know if I'll say it correctly, but Pauliina Hanuniemi, and she's from Finland. Um, so so I really liked her style, and
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed with, the portfolio pieces that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on board with that. And then in terms of what to put on the cover, I did have some suggestions. I said I would like to see the house. I would like to see, the main character, I guess going toward the house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am trying to remember what else I suggested. But basically, the artist, she came back with a sketch, um, and I had some. I was able to give some feedback on the sketch of
Okay.
the cover, and then she did a couple more versions.
Mhm.
I mean, the sketch was actually excellent. Like I didn't have much to say about it. I was really excited when I first saw it.
Mhm.
I love her artwork so much.
Yeah.
So I didn't have too many things, but like some little details that were like different in the book that I, wanted to say. Like I think I'm trying to remember. It was something about the windows, like there's supposed to be this many levels or something
Uh-huh.
like that.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
little sort of details like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so it was great to be a part of that process, without having to take too much of the burden, or to take away from the illustrator's creative
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. I like to hear the collaborative process. I know I enjoy that with my illustrators when they send me, I'll tell them what I'm envisioning in my head, and then they send it back with that and then some. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. And then, and when they nail it, they nail it. It's like,
Hmm.
that's it right there. So, for you with your characters, you had spent time developing them. Did you have an image in your head of what they look like?
um Not too much. So, one thing I like to say is that I like for my readers to be able to picture the characters however they want to picture them.
Mhm.
So, I don't want to sort of force an image on anyone.
Mhm.
I remember, though, at one point I did attend an event. This is before I had an agent, before all the um, publishing process started. I
Mhm.
attended an event that was called something about storyboarding, where you could create like a poster board
Yes.
and put, images of your story, as well as sort of the things like describe the setting, describe
Mhm.
the characters, and things like that. So I
Mhm.
did pick out some pictures of people that I thought could look like them, but I really like to leave it up to the readers of what the
Gotcha.
characters look like.
Gotcha. I like that. I remember, and this is years ago, Oprah did an interview where she talked about oh goodness, Gone with the Wind,
Mm-hmm.
and how that was one of her favorite books, and how it wasn't until she watched the movie that she found out Scarlett was a white woman. She
Oh,
said she had created this own image of who Scarlett was. And so it is interesting when you do have some writing where the writer, the author does create the image for you,
mm-hmm.
right? Versus when you're left to your own imagination. So
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. How about in your new book? Let's talk a little bit about that. And again, I
Okay.
just want to remind we got some new people jumping on. Show them your current book so
Right.
that they can recognize it. The Peril at Price Manor. It is currently 50% off at Amazon. The link is in the chat room. I encourage you to go out and get this book. It is good for readers 8 years old and up. All right. So that was book number one.
Mhm.
And now we are excited. There is another book on the horizon.
Right. So this one's called The Haunting of Bellington Cottage,
Mm.
and it will be releasing in the summer in July. Um, and this story, I like to say it's about a haunted Airbnb. So the premise is that there's a girl named Iris, and she has recently her best friend moved away. So
Mm.
she's kind of bummed out. She also just broke her arm, so
Oh.
she's even more bummed out.
Oh.
But her parents are taking her on a trip to Vermont to have a little vacation with another family.
Mhm.
And there's a girl in the other family who she had seen 3 years prior. She hasn't seen this friend since, but when they had seen each other at the previous vacation, they really hit it off. They were really so alike, and they were both very creative. So they had turned their rental house into a haunted house, like to scare the grown-ups.
Okay, cute.
So Iris is really excited to connect with this old friend again and do the same thing. She wants to create a haunted house to scare the grown-ups. She's, this is kind of like she's missing her best friend, so she's gonna, bring back this connection with
Yeah.
this old friend.
Yeah.
So when the old friend shows up, though, at the rental house, she's changed. She's kind of moody. She's got dyed black hair and black makeup, and kind of dresses a little bit goth. And but the most important thing is that she's got an attitude, and she's moody, and she's grumpy, and the connection's no longer there. And Iris, doesn't really know why. She wanted to, have this same experience that she had when they were younger. And she tries very hard, and is trying to, create this haunted house still, even though is not too into it. But then it turns out that there are some mysterious noises and happenings going on in the house that she's not doing, and that there might be an actual ghost in the house. So it's about friendships, maintaining friendships. It's about sort of when one kid grows up a little faster than the other, and sometimes that can change friendship dynamics. So that's coming out in the summer.
Spot on. And same age group, that 8 to 12-year-old?
Yeah.
So how did you narrow down? I know you talked about your children. How did you narrow down to that being kind of the age group that you wanted to work with?
Well, excuse me. That's kind of the typical age group for the middle grade genre of novels. You've got your board books for babies. You've got your picture books for kids up to about 8 years old. And you might have some of those like early reader chapter books for the 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And then from 8 to 12, that's kind of where the next level of
Yes.
reading is.
Yes.
And I really fell in love with that age group, just reading those books.
Mhm.
I, would take out a lot of books from the library in that age range.
Mhm.
It's a great age group to write about because there are these changes. The kids are sort of becoming a little more independent from their parents. That's always a fun thing when you're writing a book for this age group. How do we get rid of the parents?
That's
These kids have to, be doing things independently.
Yes.
That's what this age group wants to read about.
Yeah.
Kids doing things on their own and figuring themselves out. So it's a
Mhm.
great age range for exploring identities
Yep.
and just becoming a little bit independent.
Yeah. Now, did you do any research on with development, lifespan, milestone, those types of things? Because as you're talking about it, I'm going, this is so typical of third and fourth grade and changing friendships and dynamics and interests. This is the tween life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but did you do any psychology, lifespan research on this age group?
Not too much with psychology research, but researching through the children's literature lens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of research, focusing on literature that is for this age range, and what sort of issues or topics or
Mm-hmm.
what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what are kids interested in, what are they not interested in. So yes, I've done the research from the children's literature angle, not
Gotcha.
so much the psychology angle.
Gotcha. No, I think it's important because a lot of times, and I can't remember who I was talking to, it was another author. We were just talking about the research that goes into the author's journey, that you're not even thinking you're going to end up researching things that you do, but it enhances the way that you write and what you incorporate in your writing.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So, summertime 2025, we have this book coming out, and you mentioned that this process was very different than the first go round. So, what were some of those differences that you experienced?
Right. So when my first book was acquired by HarperCollins, it was actually a 2-book deal. So that means that they wanted to publish, this book plus one more, which hadn't been written yet. So this is very exciting for an author because you don't always expect to
Hmm.
get 2 books in
Yes.
one go. But then I had to write another book. So the process was different because instead of writing the book and then sending it to an agent and sending it to
Hmm.
the editor,
Hmm.
I had to write some book proposals. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I had a a project that I had been working on, and I sent that to my editor, but it wasn't quite what she was looking for.
Hmm.
So I had to come up with some fresh proposals,
Hmm.
and we went back and forth a few times with different ideas until we landed on this one. So I'd written a couple of pitches, which are just like a basic idea,
Hmm.
and 3 full proposals, which is you write the whole synopsis of the story in
Hmm.
like an outline, and you send the first chunk of the book, so it could be 15 pages or 30 pages, whatever they ask for. So that's a proposal.
Okay.
So I had to work on those, and until my editor decided on which one that she was interested in
Hmm.
turning into a book. And then once we landed on the book, I had, I think, something like 4 months to write the first draft.
Oh, wow.
So, because now the book, even though it's not written, it's sort of slated for a certain time that they want to publish it.
Mm-hmm.
So now there are deadlines involved.
Very different.
It is very
From
different.
6 years to 4 months is a very different process.
Exactly. And if you remember, during that 6-year process with my first book, I was revising and revising and revising all throughout.
Yeah.
So this was going to be a very rough first draft that my editor was going to see, and not a very polished, revised, years-long manuscript. So, of course, with that rough draft that I wrote in 4 months or something like that, I was a nervous wreck sending it to my editor.
I was going to ask, how were you feeling? Yes.
Right, because I knew that it was nowhere near, ready.
Yeah.
But she said that was okay, because that's how this part of the process works. When your editor sees that first draft, she knew to expect, that it's nowhere near polished and it's going to need a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that was the case. I did get that, editorial letter that was very overwhelming for that first day. But, it's been sitting on the feedback and the suggestions.
Okay.
Then I had to get to work with revisions. And then we actually went through several rounds of revisions.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 rounds of revisions. But yeah, so it is a lot different. This time around.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I know some people who are in the process of wanting publishers and shopping and making decisions on which way that they want to go. And so many times we fantasize about something, or we've watched, I'm a big Hallmark movie watcher. We've watched the different stories of what an author's life looks like, but to actually hear someone who has gone through it, it's so helpful. And the emotions that go with it, like 4 months at one time may seem like a long time, but when you got deadlines and revisions, all of a sudden, I would imagine those 4 months seem like they might have gone by very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, it was during the summer I was working on it, and basically because I already had the synopsis, the outline of the book, that was nice, because then I could just follow along with what I had written. But I had to break it into chunks of, maybe I would have to work on 2 chapters a week, and then on to the next 2 chapters the next week, with also leaving time to go through it again. So yeah, I really had to be structured and scheduled with writing that draft, whereas the other one, it was a looser process.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking, right, it's not like you were in a cottage by yourself for 4 months.
Right.
And this is all you had to focus on.
Yeah, life is happening.
But you did it.
Yeah.
And now, have you seen the cover and everything, or are you in process with that now?
I have seen the cover. If you look on my Instagram, Laura Parnum on Instagram, you could probably see it somewhere in my feed.
Okay.
So it is there. The cover was revealed, maybe it was last month. So that's exciting. It's the same illustrator that.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'm really happy with this one as well.
Oh, that is so good. Let me see. I'm trying to see if I can grab it real quick and show people. Here we go. All right, let's see. All right. And we have, let's see, this is the cover reveal here.
Oh, that was that one's.
Oh, tomorrow.
Happening tomorrow. So
sorry, everyone. Let's see. Let's see. Where is
Go into photos instead of reels.
okay.
Yep. And then scroll down a little bit. Everybody
Okay.
see my crazy Instagram. All right,
Right
so
here.
right there. Yep.
There we go.
Yes.
Yay!
So I've got a lot of people saying that they love the colors on this one.
Hmm.
The purple does play a role in the story. And it's a snow, even though the book comes out in the summer, it's a snowy setting in
Okay.
Vermont.
Fantastic. It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, everyone. So, we're getting some claps from Leslie Young and celebratory.
Thank
JJ
you.
Hannah has her star eyes as she's looking at. So exciting. So exciting. All right, everyone. The links are in the chat. I'm going to say it again. Her book. Show us your first book again. It is currently Peril at Price Manor is currently on sale at Amazon for 50% off. It is great for children ages 8 and up. How many words are in there, or is it broken down by chapters? How is that
Um,
one?
the chapters are pretty short, so that's nice for, people who just have a little bit of time to read.
Mm-hmm.
But the word count for the whole novel, I think, was something like 47,000 words.
Okay.
And it's similar for the next book as well, which is, pretty average for this
Mm-hmm.
age range.
Mm-hmm. So that's fantastic. So this is a great book. I always encourage people to read with their families. I think it's a great opportunity to spark that creativity and just that love for reading and familiarity with different genres. Laura's website is also in the chat room. Laura, for events that will be coming up, I know you're pretty finished for this year, but to find out like if you're going to be at doing any book signings next year or any events, what's the best way for people to stay in contact with what's happening with you?
Well, you can check my website. I have an events page on my website. It's lauraparnum.com. Very easy. And I usually post things on Instagram a couple days before an event's about to happen. I do have a newsletter that I don't, blast people with emails, but I'll try to send an email like quarterly so that
Mm-hmm.
I can announce anything that's coming up. But if something if something surfaces that doesn't make it into the newsletter, I'd put it on my Instagram or on the website itself. I have the events page on my website.
All right, fantastic. So, again, if you have not subscribed to Ask Dr. Walls 525 on YouTube, I encourage you to do so. We have had another fabulous author interview that was so incredibly informative. Laura, thank you so much for taking your time with us today. We wish you continued success and
Thank
all
you.
that
It's
you
my
do.
pleasure. And thank you so much for inviting me. And this is really fun just to chat.
Good. Good. I am glad. All right, everyone. Next week is another full week. We have authors, we have action movie stars, we have all types of good stuff starting on Monday. Tuesday, we get a chance to travel to Paris and learn about the history of Blacks in Paris. And then we have SK. Did you get a chance to meet SK, the author, at Plymouth meeting? She does what she likes to call spicy adult romance,
Okay.
aka known as smut. So we get a chance to talk next next Thursday, and there may be a couple other pop-ups. So I encourage you all, be sure to come back and join us. And for those who are with us today, thank you for joining us. All right, everyone, have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And as always, continue to live your greatest life. God bless. See y'all soon.
Bye, everyone.